Welcome to our deep dive on the real estate leverage trap. Today, we're comparing two very different paths for families who need more space. Building a custom home on owned land versus selling assets to buy into a better located home with lower debt. First, we'll set the stage. Then we'll explore each strategy, walk through numbers, highlight risks, and finally give you a practical framework to decide. Along the way, we'll include quick quizzes to test your understanding. Now, let's begin with the core dilemma driving this decision. Here's today's roadmap. First, we'll define the core dilemma. Next, we'll examine strategy 1, the high leverage custom build, and then strategy 2, the cash flow and location optimization. After that, we'll compare them side by side, visualize risk, and give you a step-by-step decision framework. Then, we'll run through a couple of quick quizzes, share a controversial perspective, and close with a disclaimer, key takeaways, and our wrap-up. Let's move straight into the dilemma. The central conflict is simple but powerful. On one hand, you can pursue a custom build that may create instant equity on paper. On the other hand, you can optimize for cash flow and day-to-day lifestyle by buying in a better location with less debt. As we transition, remember that both paths can be valid, but they serve different goals and carry very different risk profiles. Let's explore the first strategy in detail. In strategy 1, you leverage your owned land, worth roughly $550,000, and add a $600,000 construction budget to create a custom home. If the finished property appraises at around $1.5 million, you might see about $350,000 of instant equity on paper. Moreover, the effective monthly cost might look attractive at around $2,900 after rental offsets, although that number is very scenario dependent. However, here's the caution. Construction frequently runs over budget and timeline, often by 10 to 30%, and sometimes more. Additionally, you'll face liquidity constraints because funds are tied up in draws and contingencies, and your emergency buffer can quickly compress. As we move forward, keep in mind that the pride of ownership and custom finishes come with appraisal risk, interest carry, and significant stress if delays occur. In strategy 2, you sell the land and unlock approximately $800,000 in cash. Then, you purchase in a better location while taking on minimal debt, for example, a $300,000 mortgage. Consequently, your effective monthly housing cost might land near $1,600, which improves your monthly cash position. As a result, you build a larger financial cushion, reduce stress, and often achieve a superior location, with benefits like better schools and a shorter commute. The trade-off is fewer custom features, but the payoff is enhanced flexibility and resilience. Next, let's compare these options side by side to see the differences more clearly. Here's the head-to-head. The custom build offers potentially higher equity on paper but comes with higher debt, higher timeline risk, and constrained liquidity. In contrast, the location and cash flow approach typically reduces monthly costs, lowers debt, and provides faster occupancy. Importantly, it preserves liquidity, which is your safety net. Now that we've compared them, let's quantify some monthly implications with a simple budget table. This simplified table illustrates potential monthlies. First, principal and interest for the build path can appear high, but rental or other offsets may bring it down to roughly $2,900. Second, taxes, insurance, and maintenance add ongoing costs. Third, on the buy path, the smaller mortgage drives lower principal and interest, and the offsets are smaller, but the total outlay remains meaningfully lower. Finally, a key difference emerges: the ability to consistently fund an emergency buffer. Next, we'll visualize the timing and stress profile using a timeline diagram. This timeline contrasts the two journeys. On the build path, the first few months focus on design and permits, followed by a long construction phase where cash burn and risk intensify. The risk often peaks around months 10 to 14 due to delays, change orders, and interest carry. Completion and punch lists can then stretch the timeline further, pushing occupancy into months 15 to 18. Conversely, the buy path compresses everything. Pre-approval, search, closing, and move-in typically occur within 3 months. Throughout, the buy path preserves a larger cash buffer, lowering stress. Now, to deepen our risk understanding, let's break risk down by category with a pie chart. This pie chart allocates risk across common build pain points. First, cost overruns tend to dominate, often driven by material volatility, labor shortages, and scope creep. Second, delays arise from permits, inspections, weather, and scheduling gaps. Third, liquidity risk surfaces when cash is tied in draws just as unexpected expenses appear. Fourth, appraisal risk emerges if the finished value does not support the pro forma. Fifth, the human factor matters. Extended projects introduce stress and decision fatigue that can affect family life and work. With risks in view, let's now move into a clear, step-by-step decision framework. Follow these steps to decide with clarity. First, write down your true primary goal. Do you value instant equity or resilient cash flow and lifestyle more? Next, compute your total cost basis including land, build, and soft costs, and then model both 20 and 30% overruns. Third, calculate your post-closing cash buffer, and, if you build, target at least 12 months of expenses. Fourth, stress test your scenario with a 200 basis points rate increase, a 20% cost shock, and a 10% appraisal shortfall. Fifth, quantify location benefits like school quality, commute time, community, and appreciation potential. Finally, choose the path that still works under stress, not just in the rosy base case. Before we summarize, let's test your understanding with a quick quiz. Question: which strategy generally maximizes liquidity and safety for most families? Options: A. High leverage custom build. B. Cash flow and location optimization. C. Keep the land and take no action. D. Use a home equity line of credit to fund luxury upgrades. You may pause the video now to think about the answer. We will discuss the answer in the next section of the video. The correct answer is B. Cash flow and location optimization. This path typically results in lower debt, higher monthly cushion, and thus greater resilience. Additionally, location provides meaningful non-monetary returns, such as better schools and shorter commutes, which can improve life quality. Now let's try one more quick calculation. Question: if a $600,000 build runs 20% over budget, how much additional cash is required? Options: A. $60,000. B. $100,000. C. $120,000. D. $200,000. You may pause the video now to consider the answer. We will discuss the answer in the next section of the video. The correct answer is C. $120,000. 20% of $600,000 is $120,000. This highlights why a 10 to 15% contingency may still be insufficient in some cases. Next, let's address the controversial advice directly. Here's the hot take. First, the promise of instant equity can be misleading if it ignores risk, liquidity, and stress. Second, for many families, lowering debt and stress while improving location often leads to better long-term satisfaction. Third, true financial security is less about appraised value and more about resilient cash flow and a healthy investment buffer outside of real estate. Finally, custom builds can be wonderful, but they're best pursued when you have substantial liquidity, time, and risk tolerance. Before we close, a quick but important disclaimer. Please note this is educational content, not financial, legal, or tax advice. All numbers are illustrative, and your actual results will vary based on market conditions, loan terms, locations, and personal circumstances. Always consult qualified professionals before committing to a build or purchase. These are the key points. First, define your primary goal. Second, assume overruns and delays and price them in. Third, protect your liquidity because it is your safety net. Fourth, value location because lifestyle benefits compound. Finally, choose the plan that still works when conditions worsen. Now let's wrap up with a concise summary. In summary, Strategy 1 can create attractive equity but typically increases leverage, timing risk, and liquidity strain. In contrast, Strategy 2 reduces debt, often improves location, and preserves cash flow, making it the safer default for many families. Use the decision framework to stress test your plan before moving forward. Finally, let's close with a quick message. Thank you for watching. If this was helpful, please like the video, share it with someone who is making this decision, and subscribe for more practical real estate and personal finance content. Post your scenario in the comments, and tell us which path you would choose and why.